You are listening to Housekeepers Chat by the United States Department of Agriculture from 1926. Disclaimer: this is read from a historic archive document. Do not assume content reflects current scientific knowledge, policies, or practices. This broadcast was aired 19th of October 1926.
I am greatly disturbed today, really greatly disturbed. The morning paper says we grow to look like what we eat, and I have always been so fond of peanuts. I like cheese too, those fat, funny-looking cheeses full of holes. My grocer knows my weakness. He's always guiding me to the cheese counter. Speaking of cheese, do the members of your family like Welsh rabbit? If they do, I wish you'd try a new cheese toast and tell me what you think of it. It's a kind of glorified Welsh rabbit. I haven't made this cheese toast at home yet. I tasted a sample made at the Bureau of Home Economics. It's a good idea to call on the Bureau folks when they're finishing an experiment on cheese toast or peach dainty or something like that. You may get invited into the kitchen. They're making pickles this month. The hall is filled with a tantalizing, spicy odor that makes one want to linger right near the kitchen door. To get back to the cheese toast, it was so good that I asked the recipe specialist how she made it. She uses eggs and baking powder. Want to write down the ingredients in proper order? 1 pound American cheese, 1/2 pint rich milk or cream, 2 eggs, 4 drops Tabasco or a few grains of cayenne pepper, a little onion juice if you like it, 1/2 teaspoon salt, 1½ teaspoons baking powder, 2 tablespoons flour mixed with 2 tablespoons water. Flake the cheese with a fork. Heat the milk in a double boiler. Thicken it with the flour which has been mixed with the water. Cook for 5 minutes. Add the beaten eggs, the cheese, the pepper, and the salt. Cook slowly until the cheese has melted and the mixture is thick and creamy. Allow it to cool, then add the baking powder. The cheese mixture is then ready to spread on the toast. Toast just one side of the bread. Spread the cheese mixture thickly on the untoasted side to the very edge. If the cheese mixture doesn't come to the edges, they become brown and hard. Brown the cheese delicately under a low gas flame or in the oven. The slow heat allows the cheese mixture to heat through before it browns, gives it a chance to become light, and keeps the cheese tender and soft. Too great heat makes the cheese tough and stringy. If you like, place a strip of crisp bacon across each slice of cheese toast. Serve it hot from the oven. This recipe makes enough for 12 to 14 slices of bread. I intended to have it for Sunday night supper, the next time we have unexpected company, but talking about it makes me want it right away. Tonight. Another meal problem solved. One good thing about this cheese toast is that it can be prepared, except for the baking powder, the day before it's to be used. The mixture stiffens on standing, so heat it a few minutes in a double boiler before adding the baking powder. Then spread the cheese on the toast. I have another good hunch for a Sunday night supper. Ever make ginger pears out of the hard pears that aren't much good for anything else? Combine ginger pears and cream cheese sometime in sandwiches and try that on your family. I persuaded the pickle specialist to tell me how she makes ginger pears. Her recipe calls for 8 pounds of pears, not too ripe, 4 pounds of sugar, 5 or 6 pieces of ginger root, varying in length from 1 to 2 inches, and 2 lemons. Wipe the pears, remove the stems, quarter and core. Cut the pears into small pieces. If you use small sugar pears, cut them in halves. Add the sugar and the ginger. Let stand overnight. In the morning, add the lemons cut in small pieces, rejecting the seeds, and cook until thick. Watch the mixture carefully so it won't stick and scorch. Don't let it cook down so long that the rich amber color is lost. Remove the fruit when it becomes clear. Then concentrate the juice. An asbestos mat under the kettle will keep the pears from sticking. I try to keep a few jars of ginger pears during the winter. Another thing I keep on my company shelf is grape conserve. If you have boys and girls in high school or college, you know how they appreciate boxes from home. If these boxes contain some homemade spreads, so much the better. Do you save the round cartons ice cream comes in? The pint boxes are just the right size for small glasses of jam, or marmalade, or conserve. Rinse the ice cream cartons with hot water and let them dry. Next time you send Genevieve's laundry, put a glass of grape conserve in the corner of the laundry box and see if Genevieve doesn't write home for more. Grape conserve is easy to make. I use 3 pounds of Concord grapes, 2 pounds of sugar, 1 cup of nut meats, English walnuts or pecans chopped, 1 cup seeded raisins, and 1 orange cut fine. Skin the grapes, stew them, run them through a sieve, add them to the skins, then add the other ingredients and cook until the mixture is thick. Grape conserve is likely to stick to the kettle unless it's watched closely. Better use an asbestos mat, as you did for the ginger pears. The first question today is from a housewife who wants to know what causes crystals to form in grape jelly and what can be done to prevent their formation. Tartaric acid present in grape juice tends to crystallize out in grape jelly. The best way to prevent this is to extract the grape juice and allow it to stand overnight in an enamel or earthenware bowl. The crystals are very likely to form on the sides of the bowl. The juice can be strained off and made into jelly the next day. Juice from grapes which are just ripe or a little underripe may have fewer tartaric acid crystals than that from ripe grapes. Some homemakers prefer to bottle the juice and make up jelly as it is wanted in the winter, a little at a time. The second question is from a housewife in Missouri. Please tell me how to raise a kitchen table, and don't tell me to use bricks. I've used bricks. They don't add anything to the beauty of the kitchen. Very well, I won't even mention bricks. I don't care much for them either as a foundation for kitchen tables. I have a tall friend who made her work table higher by using blocks of wood with sockets in them. The table legs were fitted neatly into the wooden blocks. Here's another method of raising a table. Use blocks of wood with metal strips attached to them. Screw or nail the table legs to the blocks by means of the metal strips. I believe that, as a rule, our kitchen tables and our sinks are too low, and then we wonder why we have tired backs and rounded shoulders. The next request is from a farmer's wife who wants directions for making vinegar from winter apples. I'd like to give you the directions here and now, but I think you'll be better satisfied with a copy of Farmer's Bulletin 424 on making vinegar in the home and on the farm. This bulletin has reliable directions for making vinegar from apples, peaches, grapes, and other fruits. I'm sending you a copy of the bulletin today. For everyone else, find the link in the More Information section below. I have heard it said, writes a listener in Indiana, that eating raw onions makes one sleepy. Is there any truth in this statement? I doubt it. There's nothing in onions, raw or cooked, which would make a person drowsy. If one feels that way after eating onions, it is probably because the meal was so good that he ate too much, and naturally he feels a little bit sleepy. I wish those of you who tried the recipes the past 2 weeks would write me of your success. Which recipes did you like best? Tomorrow I'll give you another menu, and Friday I'll give you one for Sunday. Since so many of you are canning fruit this month and making jellies, conserves, and so forth, I thought you'd be more interested in recipes than in menus, at least part of the time. Am I right? A friend of mine who is making jelly this week says she numbers each lot of jelly glasses with a colored pencil. The numbers must be put on the glasses while they're hot, so the marks will show. If any lot of jelly needs to be cooked a little longer, the marks on the glasses show just which glasses belong in the lot. She pays particular attention to labels, too. Labels are very important on foods which look alike in a dark seller's bottles of catsup and strained tomato juice, for instance. Date your labels, so last year's cans will be opened before this year's. By the way, some of you have been writing for copies of a cookbook published by the Bureau of Home Economics. There is no such cookbook. The Bureau does have printed recipes in a number of the bulletins, but not in book form. Instead of giving you a menu today, I'm going to tell you how to make an old-time favorite, apple butter with cider. There's no better way to use good apples and the sound portions of windfall, wormy, and bruised apples than to make them into apple butter. Almost any apples will make good apple butter, but those of good cooking quality with a rich tart flavor are most satisfactory. Recent tests made by the United States Department of Agriculture show that summer apples make just as good butter as fall and winter varieties. Sometimes sweet apples are used with tart apples, the usual proportion being 1/3 of the sweet apples to 2/3 of the tart. If you must use overripe apples, add a little vinegar to give snap to the butter. Either fresh cider or commercial sterilized cider may be used. The usual proportion of peeled sliced apples and cider is gallon for gallon. From 1/2 to 3/4 of a gallon of cider to a gallon of peeled and sliced apples will give a rich butter if the apples are good cookers. Continue the cooking until the cider and apples do not separate, and the butter, when cold, is as thick as good applesauce. Determine the thickness at frequent intervals by cooling small portions. If sugar is used, add it when the butter is about 2/3 done. About a pound of either white or brown sugar to a gallon of apple butter is the usual proportion. You may use more or less or none at all to suit the taste. Apple butter is spiced according to taste, about 1/2 teaspoonful each of ground cinnamon, cloves, and allspice being used for each gallon. These are stirred in it when the cooking is finished. Vanilla extract, added after the spices are stirred in, adds to the snappiness of the butter. Use from 2 to 4 teaspoonfuls per gallon of butter according to taste. That's all about apple butter for today. Let's see, did I caution you to be careful about stirring it? Don't let the butter scorch, and stick to the kettle. Tomorrow, be ready for another menu to add to your cookbooks. And by the way, if you haven't already sent for your Aunt Sammy's radio cookbook, do it today. It contains all the recipes I have given so far, and after we have your name, we'll send you the other new ones each week on loose leaves that may be added to the loose leaf book we send you. Everyone else can find the link to this cookbook in the More Information section below.
This broadcast was researched and produced by BreakAway Empire LLC.